Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This is the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again with your host Nick Scopes and the Gregolicious. You know how we do, cause you know we keeping it gangster and silly. Unplugged like a full swung titty. Bout get jitty, cause you know we down to the nitty and the gritty. And we make shit sound so damn pretty. Yeah, cause this unhinged comedy. And right now you're in the mix, so get ready, cause we bout to get it poppin'. And we ain't stopping.
Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again. Yeah, we at it again.
Hello and welcome to the Mangina Dialogues. I am your host, Nick Scopoletti.
And I'm the Gregolicious.
And today, our guest is professional clogger, Larry the Cable Guy.
Get-r-done.
Larry, is that your type of music or what?
I was actually clogging to the theme song.
Yeah, we heard it. We heard it in the background. How's that clogging school going?
You know, all I ever wanted to do was dance. I know a lot of people think that's crazy. I traveled with Riverdance when I was in my teenage years.
You and Nick Scopes have a lot in common.
Was it Mississippi Riverdance? Was that where you were doing it?
No, you know, I did it down in Branson for many years.
We've heard it's huge.
Oh, my gosh.
So what's
You know, I always thought it was funny down in Branson. I love golfing down in Branson, but I always heard the stories about Branson. But before I ever went to Branson, I remember watching some show, and Johnny Lee, you know Johnny Lee, the country singer.
Right.
Johnny Lee was doing some round table thing in country music. They said, Johnny, what have you been doing lately? This Ford ever gone to Branson? And he said, well, I had a horrible nightmare last night. I dreamt I died and went to Branson. ever since he said that, I wanted to go to Branson.
And how do you like Branson?
You know, there's a lot of old people down there.
So
it is packed full of older people. You know, I got to say this, since we're all cooped up in our houses, you know, my mom is on medical marijuana. She's 84.
Nice.
And I told her the other day she was smoking too much pot. And she said, how do I know? And I said, because Meals on Wheels has been by your house 8 times today.
She's got the munchies, huh?
Yeah, it's a munchie, boys. Anyway, well,
hilarious.
thanks for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate having you on, man. I was very excited. We just, like we were mentioning off air, we watched your special. Your new special comes out April 7th. Okay, got it right.
That's right.
It was
April
good,
7th.
man. It's great. I loved
Yeah,
it.
thanks. You know what? It's I always try to keep everything. You know, I love doing one-liners. I just kind of write that way, so I always try to pack everything with as many one-liners as I possibly can. And I think this one I had a little more maybe not stories, but you know, I think I had some, you know, like the bit about telling the story about when I was on the cruise ship and was doing Mater.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, you know, I wasn't going to do another one. You know, I was pretty content in my life. I do about 30 shows a year, and I hang out with my family. But you know, I hadn't done a solo album in like 10 years. I've done project albums. Like I did one with Bill and Jeff, and then Jeff and I did one, and so man, I had the material. I'm looking at my notes. I go, holy mackerel! I got like almost 80 minutes of brand new material that no one's ever heard. So I did it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I was laughing hysterically yesterday when I was watching it at home. My wife and kids were like, what in the hell are you doing inside in that office?
Awesome. That's great. And, you know, it's funny. I never thought I could ever, out of all the stuff that I've done and all the stuff that I've written, I couldn't believe that I still had another batch of material about Walmart and county fairs.
Yeah. Hey, listen, Walmart is the gift that doesn't stop giving.
Yeah, for real.
It keeps going. It's unbelievable. It's awesome.
So I have a question about like the demographic of who you see your fans as, because when I told my son, who's going to be 16 next week, about we were doing an episode with you today, he like freaked out. He was like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "That is so funny. Can I come?" And I'm like, "No."
Absolutely not. Stay home.
Like, stay at home. And I'm like, but that sort of surprised me that, a 16-year-old, like to your point, you haven't recorded an album in 10 years. Like, obviously there's been, the TV show that was out for a while, but still that's a 10, like, I don't even remember how long ago was that, the Made in America show, 7, 8 years ago?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that was probably 2010, 2011, 2012.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was 8 years ago was the last time I did that.
So do you find like you have a lot of younger fans, or does that surprise you?
Man, I've always had this crazy mix of fans. When I did the movie Cars, obviously, that's probably where he found out about me, because the first Cars movie came out 14 years ago.
Right.
And then the 14 years ago, then 10 years ago, there was another one. And then, 5 years ago, there was another one. So that's probably where a lot of these younger kids probably have heard of me. And so since they heard the name, I mean, it's not every day, they say the voice of Mater Larry the Cable Guy.
Right.
I'm sure they're like, what the heck? So then they look you up, and then they look at clips. And so that's probably what brought in a lot of the younger viewers. But you go to my show, and it's a wider range. There's people of every age group at my show. I mean, it never really, I can't really nail down one demographic. It's just kind of like all over the board.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's because your style and what you talk about is, it is very universal. It's not like, at least to me, like we live in suburban, outside, in Connecticut, outside New York City. And, you would think that just based on what the whole character is based on, it doesn't necessarily appeal to this, hedge fund manager demographic, but it does. I mean, you did a show, you probably don't remember because all the shows you do, but you did a show at the arena that's right in the town next to ours, probably, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe, the Harbor Yard in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and it was sold out.
Webster Arena.
No, I totally remember that. It was awesome. And I saw an interview one time. Man, I can't remember who it was, but it was like somebody that you would never think would be a fan of mine. And they asked them what their guilty pleasure was. And they said, Larry the Cable Guy. and it's like, wow, and I got invited one time to just come and entertain and be a surprise guest speaker for a bunch of lawyers one time. They wanted me to, so it's really all over the board, and my material, I think, in this last album is a little more friendly for everybody.
Right.
A lot has happened in 10 years. I'm married and I got kids, and I think my writing has gotten a lot better, and I'm a little more, there's some jokes that I probably I look back on some of my early material and I loved it. I mean, it was funny. Don't get me wrong. It is what it is. But some of the, I look back on some of them now and I kind of cringe and go, oh man, I can't believe that I did that joke in 2006. Because I would never even breach the topic now. So I think my writing's gotten better, a little more friendly for everyone. Because I want everybody to be able to laugh and enjoy it. I don't want to abandon anybody. So I think that I achieved that with this. I think everybody could laugh at it and enjoy it, and it was still close to, it was still honest to the character that I created. It didn't really fray from any of that. It just,
right.
I just think the writing is so much better now.
So one of the bits in the new special, without giving away, the material, because we're going to put this out before your special comes out, is the bit you do about classic rock bands, right? Because we are on the exact same page. Like, I'm a classic rock fan. We're not that far apart in age, and I I want to go back to my high school days and see Foreigner. But when I look at what Foreigner is on today, it's one guy and then 6 other dudes that are 27 years old.
I know. It's like I went when Jeff and I did the Jeff and Larry's outdoor barbecues. You know, it was us two, and then Marshall Tucker Band and Foghat, and Eddie Money, and I made the Foghat guys were awesome. You know, and they're from England. Foghat's from England. It's an English band, and the only guy, the drummer that formed the band, of course, he was there. Everybody else was from Orlando.
Yeah, it really is hysterical to me because like I love all of that stuff and like to go see them and we live in a town luckily that has 2 great music venues in it that vary in size from 300 or 250 to 800. So we get a lot of those classic rock bands that come through, and it just blows me away. I'm like, how are they getting away with calling themselves the Outlaws? like it's Outlaws with a Z.
Well, dude, doesn't Journey, their lead singer's like an Asian teenage boy now, or that's what they found on YouTube or something? Like, I'm pretty sure.
Well, Journey, at least Journey's kind of close. Journey is still, I think, almost everybody except for the singer.
Right, yeah.
REO Speedwagon is pretty much all together. Except for the guitar player, because he passed away. And now it's funny because I'm really good friends with all the Speedwagon guys. They play my golf tournament, and so
awesome.
they love the jokes about it too. I make DJ jokes about it all the time. I'll tell you what I used to do a joke about. I was going to have I'm a huge fan of. I don't think I did this one on the album. I did do the Molly Hatchet joke though about getting pictures with the cardboard cutouts of the original members.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
No,
I died. It's so true.
Yeah,
dead on.
But I actually had one about I was gonna hire Molly Hatchet tribute band for a birthday party, but they were too expensive, so I ended up getting Molly Hatchet. And I actually quit doing that joke because I had like 3 Molly Hatchet jokes. And one time I was on the radio, and I didn't do that joke, but I did another joke. And I got an email from the guy that founded Molly Hatchet and talking about, hey, man, thanks for being a fan, talking about the band, blah, blah, blah. But he wasn't even with the band. He owns a lawn service in Orlando. and the Molly Hatchet that's out there now pays him 35%. Of everything they do out on the road. And yeah, it was funny because Molly Hatchet travels now, and the only original member of Molly Hatchet is the original 3rd replacement drummer.
It's like the Temptations.
yeah, they're all dead.
Exactly. Well, who is the man? You know, it's really funny you bring that up. Long time ago, I had a joke about, oh man, doggone it, I hope I don't forget, it's so long ago. It was, I'm going to forget it. The singing group from the 60s. It was just 2 guys. Baby, baby. Dude, not Hall & Oates, but the original.
Eddie Ruffin and Eddie...
the Righteous Brothers.
Oh, the Righteous Brothers, yeah.
I had one called... there's a new act. The years haven't been good on some people. There's actually a new act in Vegas called Siegfried and the Righteous Brothers. Oh my! I know it makes me laugh. I only got to do that joke one time I was in Vegas, and I said, "There's a new act coming up, Siegfried the Righteous Brothers." That's the only time I ever got to use the joke.
Speaking of tigers, have you seen that new Netflix special with the tiger guy?
No, but my wife is like, honey, you got to see this. I can't explain the show, but I can't stop watching it. There literally is not one person of any redeemable value on this show.
There is not.
Yeah, no, I have not seen it, but I probably will. She said it's just like, she goes, these are people that the midway at the fair would reject.
Yeah. Oh, there's no question. It's going to be one of those
Yeah.
social phenomenons that like it just everyone's going to watch it in the next certainly in the
Well,
next month.
especially now that they're captive and they can't go anywhere, they're all
Yeah.
going to be watching it.
It's true, man. It's true.
Yeah, but it's a must watch. You got to check it out.
Larry, my question for you, since I'm new in stand-up, I just started, so I want to kind of know how you started, because I know the character, you started just doing it regularly, and then the character kind of came along later. So
Right.
I guess two-part is really like, why'd you get into stand-up, and the second part is how did the character come to be?
Yeah, sure. I kind of got into stand up by accident. I was always kind of a funny. I always say I wasn't dropped as a baby. I was thrown across the room. I was a bellhop at a hotel, and I was just kind of flagging around. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I went to college for just a couple of years. I played baseball. Went to a Baptist college in Georgia. I played baseball. I sat out a semester because I didn't want to work while I played baseball. I started being a bellhop, and I was always a goofy, funny kid. So I would crack jokes. I used to drive the hotel van, and I picked up airline crews from Northwest Airlines, and I used to just the entire time I would just be funny, and I was always I love people, so I was always outgoing and always talking to people. That's why I was a bellhop. I was in the service industry,
Right.
and they would always go, "You need to be a comedian. You need to be a comedian. You're funny." And so actually, they had a comedy night. This is in the '80s, so a comedy night. This is when comedy started getting real big in the mid '80s. All these bars were having comedy nights, and it was like a big phenomenon. And so I just got my buddy actually dared me to go up on stage one night. I went up on stage. Man, I just got hooked on it. I went up on stage. Didn't do that well, but I thought I did at the time. So I went on stage, and then an actual comedy club called the Comedy Corner in West Palm Beach, Florida, opened up in 1986, and I spent every living, breathing second of my life after work at that club. I just loved it. I mean, I did anything to get on stage. I'd clean tables. I'd do whatever they asked me to do so I could get stage time. And at the time, Rolling Stone magazine actually had listed the Comedy Corner as the 5th best comedy club in the United States.
Wow.
So everybody came through. I mean, Seinfeld and Leno and everybody that was anybody came through. Rich Jenny and Dennis Wolfberg and Larry Miller and Judy Tenuta. I mean, they were all coming through. So I learned a lot from those people and going on stage. But, just like anybody else, I started just perfecting my act and getting an act. And I went out as an opening act, and then I went out as a middle act. And make a long story short, a buddy of mine named Ron Bennington. I think that he has a show in New York now on Sirius, like I do. But he didn't want to go on the road as much. He had a family, and he got sick of traveling. So he started a comedy club in Clearwater, Florida. And I did a character. I always did characters. I love characters. And so I did like 5 or 6 different characters, but I did this cable guy character, and he loved it, thought it was hilarious, asked me if I could do it every now and then on his radio show because he wanted his buddies to call up and help out on the morning show and do characters and stuff. They need characters. And I did, and man, it just really hit. I mean, people loved it. And it was requested, and I went from 1 day a week doing it to 2 days a week to 3 days a week, 4 days a week. And of course, I was out on the road. I quit my job. I actually took a leave of absence, and so man, it just started getting popular. And I never thought about doing it on stage. I never thought about any of that. It was just something fun to do. And then I ended up quitting that station over a discrepancy of some T-shirt sales because I wasn't getting paid to do the character. Right. Radio stations are just cheap bastards. So I ended up quitting. Then another radio station in Orlando asked me if I wanted to still do it. they negotiated some little thing for me, and I said, yeah. They had 3 stations, so I went from 1 station to 3 stations, and then they hired me to go in and do the radio part time when I wasn't on the road. They said, come on in, and we'd love to have you a part of the morning show. And I said, fantastic. I mean, they were really awesome to me. And then to make a long story longer, no, I'll shorten it up. The reason I started doing it on stage was I got booked at a comedy club called McCurdy's Comedy Club in St. Petersburg, in Sarasota, Florida. And the guy billed me without telling me, Dan Whitney, a.k.a. Larry the Cable Guy. And I was kind of pissed he did it because it was all theater of the mind. I never one time said, hey, I'm going to do this on stage. Because I was saying stuff that nobody could get away with. I was from the Howard Stern School. That's where I learned,
Yeah.
You be shocking, be funny, and get out of there. And so he billed me as that. The show sold out he sold out 2 shows in like 30 minutes.
Wow.
Jeez.
And I got done with the first show. I dipped down into the character. I couldn't follow it. I'm signing autographs. I'm taking pictures. It was something unlike I'd ever seen before. And then he came up to me and said, man, that was crazy. He said, can you do your whole show like that? I said, well, Les, you know me, man. I hang out with nothing but a bunch of, rednecks down in where I'm from. I mean, that's, because I grew up on a pig farm in Nebraska. So when I moved to Florida, I gravitated to all the country kids, so all the crackers down there. So I said, yeah, I can do that. It's no problem. I talk like that all the time. So he took my name. He erased my real name, just left up Larry the Cable Guy. And for the first time, I went up and I did Larry the Cable Guy as a full-on character. It killed. A light bulb went off. And I said, boy, if I can get more radio stations, I can sell out comedy clubs all over the country because this is crazy. And that's exactly what I did.
Wow.
I ended up syndicating it out. I never chased the money. I told them if they can pay me, pay me. If you can't, don't pay me. I just asked that when I come by here and do a show at the comedy club, you guys promote it as a radio station event. And they were all in. They said, wow. Because radio stations, anytime they can get something free, entertainment for free, because they all these morning shows got to fill 3.5 minutes sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and that's what started the whole ball rolling. That's
Wow.
pretty much it. And I will say this though, I never chased the money. I knew at some point something would turn up, so I never really. Foxworthy, I always learned that from Foxworthy. Foxworthy always said, it's called show business for a reason. There's 2 parts to what we do.
Yeah.
There's show and there's business. And and Jeff always said, man, there's people way funnier than me, but they're not better than I am at the business.
Right.
So if you're good at the business, the show part's going to follow the business part. And once the show part shows up, you better be ready to perform out the show part.
Amen.
That's a perfect segue to what I was going to ask you was that, see now you got this character. How long between like the character developing and then you doing the Blue Collar Comedy Tour and that coming together and meeting Jeff Foxworthy and all that stuff?
Yeah, that was probably character really started humming in about 1996 and 96, 97. And then Blue Collar came along. I think Blue Collar was 4 years later. I became one of the highest paid comedy club acts. I think it was me and Rich Jenny were the 2 highest paid comedy club acts.
Really?
Yeah, and so I would say I think Blue Collar was 99 or 2, something like that. 2000, yeah. 2000. I can't remember when it started. It's been so long.
That's wild, man. That's what I remember, like, getting into comedy, too, because at that point in 2000, 2001, I was, like, 12, 13, and Kings of Comedy came out, and then you guys came out, and I was like, this is great. What is happening? That was, like, the real, like, 4 comics, guys, all killers, big stars, just go out together and rip it on the road. It was so cool to see.
Oh, yep. And then here we came, the Redneck Rat. Then the Redneck Rat Pack shows up.
Yeah, I know. These handsome black guys in suits, nice suits, and then you guys showed up and, changed it.
Yeah, it was really crazy that we never had any clue that it was going to be that big. But this is why I'll tell you the crazy thing about it. I tell people all the time about don't ever look. I know we're comedians, and some people want to be famous. Some people just want to make a good living and make people laugh. Some people, I kind of took it day by day. Here's the thing. I love being a stand-up comic, and I love making people laugh. But one of the cool things about being a stand-up was people always want to hire somebody like you because you're outgoing, you're funny, people like you. So there were people that came to my shows all the time just when I did comedy clubs and said, hey, this comedy thing don't work out. Here's my card. We could use a guy like you at Penske. You know how it is. You know what I mean.
Penske, I love it. John
So
Deere.
so I always had tons of job opportunities doing stand-up, and I never knew where it would go. But I never knew instead of chasing the money, I chased the opportunity because you never knew who's going to be at a show. And here's how I got Blue Collar. I'm kind of like the Ringo Starr of Blue Collar. They had another guy. They had already done about 9 or 10 shows without me. They had another guy they wanted to get rid of because he just wasn't getting it. He wasn't blue. It was Bill Engvall's old opening act.
Okay.
And apparently, I don't know much about the story. He just wasn't getting it. Wasn't blue collar enough. So they wanted somebody else. So they were looking for somebody else. So Foxworthy, I went up. I'd just been on the road for about 3 months straight. Hardly any days off.
Wow.
Well, I mean, I'd have a couple of days off. I might come home for 2 or 3 days, and I'd go back out on the road. But just solid for 3 months. Every week I had something. And so finally I had a week off. First day, I'm out on a boat with my buddy Fish, and I got a phone call. They're doing a show called History of Country Comedy, hosted by Jeff Foxworthy and Andy Griffith up in Nashville. They need one more guy, that a guy back out. They want you to be on it. My first thought was, and it's the Ryman Hotel. My first thought was, man, I'm a huge country music fan. I've never been to the Ryman Hotel, or to the Ryman.
Right.
And I've never performed there. I would love to perform at the Mother Church of Country Music.
Yeah.
How awesome is this? Plus, I'll get to see Jeff. He's my friend. All right, I'll do it. You never know who's going to be in the crowd. I might pick up a huge country tour. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
So I went up and I did it. Foxworthy saw me. They were looking for another guy. I killed that night. He said, hey, let's try Dan out. I think you'd be perfect for what we're doing. So I went up and I flew up, and they tried me out on 2 dates to see if I meshed with Ron and Bill, because I didn't know either one of them. I never met Bill in my life. Ron, I met maybe once. So fortunately for me and all the work that I'd already done, my first show was in Columbia, South Carolina, where I probably sold 3,000 tickets on my own.
Wow.
That's wild.
Because I'd been on the radio there kicking major butt. And, oh, yeah, it just went great. And I only had to do, of course, 10 minutes. And with my act, I can shove 31 liners in 10 minutes.
It's true.
So anyway, I hope this wasn't too long, but that's how I got started, how it became about, and how Blue Collar started. So
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Really, I'm sure you've been asked that a bazillion times.
Yeah.
Thanks for indulging us.
yeah, well, and I know, and I always try to find a way to shorten it up, but
No, dude, it's
I
all
don't want
good
to leave
stuff.
out any. I don't want to leave out any details. It was such a crazy, honestly, fellas. It was nuts. I mean, I was so thankful for all of it, and it's like everything that came I never once said, "Hey, I want to do this. Hey, let's do this," or "Hey, let's do this." Like movies. When I did these goofy movies, I never asked to do a movie. I could have cared less about doing a movie. They came to me. I'm
Right.
on my tour bus one day, and my manager goes, "Hey, well, what is it out of Canada that did the movies with? I can't remember, but anyway, some movie company called up, wants to do a movie with you." No kidding? Yeah. You want to do one? Yeah, sure. Okay, well, here's the script they got. It's called Larry the Cable Guy Health Inspector. I'll send it to you and read it. And I go, well, did you read it? He goes, yeah, I read it. Is it funny? Yeah, it's hilarious. I said, well, I don't need to read it. If you think it's funny, we'll just do it and I'll make it funny. I swear, I'm not kidding. I got the movie Health Inspector. I don't think I read it one time.
Did you ever see it?
Yeah.
No. Well, yeah, I saw it, but I didn't want to read it. You kidding me? You want me to sit down and read something? Come on, I'm out on the road. I'm having a good time.
I'm with you, bro.
The exact same way.
I'm with you.
I haven't read a book in ever.
Yeah, it's like, does this come on audiobook or a podcast or?
I know, but it was. I was just a single guy making jokes, and even today. I think I'm one that can say I read the Steve Martin book, and he said the one thing he regretted about his short stand-up career, because he went right into doing other things, was he never really had a chance to just kick back and enjoy what was happening to him, because it was a whirlwind. He'd finish a hotel, come Whiskey Man, and he said if he would have had to do all over again, he would have enjoyed his stand-up career better, because he enjoyed stand-up, but he never really enjoyed it. So after I read that book, I said, you know what, I want to start taking all this in a lot more, because it doesn't happen to everybody. And I'm going to just start taking it in more. And I'm going to start enjoying it. And I did. I started after the shows. I would, and I learned this from Brad Paisley. After the shows, I would go into the theater or into the arena, and I'd sit up there with my buddies, and we'd either smoke cigars or chew tobacco, because we're idiots. But we'd go in there and just have a dip and sit up in the rafters and watch them rip the stage apart, and just talk about the night and how cool it was. Brad Paisley told me that's what they used to do. They used to, finish the night, and then they go change. They come back in the arena, and they'd sit in the arena and just kind of go, wow, this is so cool. What's going on here? And they'd smoke cigars and talk. So we started doing that. I started really enjoying it a lot more. And I learned that from Steve Martin. But everything that happened to me was just such a whirlwind. It was just like boom, 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 boom. And I look back at things now, and I go, holy smokes, that was a big deal. But when it was happening, it was like, yeah, whatever. Hey, I guess this is just part of the deal. It never really, I just pulled the thing out the other day. I was on the cover. There's my name and picture on Rolling Stone magazine. And then there's the 3 Country Weeklies, which was one of my favorite publications. I always wanted to get in that. I was in the magazine probably 8 times in a year.
Wow.
A gossip magazine. I was in People. I was in, for like 2 or 3 years. I was at, and I never, honestly, fellas, to this day, it never really registered what was happening. It was just such a whirlwind. But now that I've had time, and I only do about 30 dates a year, and I'm home a lot more, and I'm hanging out with my kids, I come across stuff, and it just makes me smile. And I'm like going, holy mackerel, that was crazy. It seems like a whole nother life.
Yeah. That's wild, man. That's so cool to see. Like you said that story was long, but I thought it was great. Like the whole progression of everything and how it happened is so cool, and it's inspiring to someone who's brand new to comedy like me.
So I have some dumb.
Yeah, well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I have some dumb questions.
Classic.
Well, I never ever tell anybody that wants to get into stand up. Well, it's kind of, if anybody ever said they wanted to do it, they just got to do it and try it. At least you've tried it, and you say, you know what, I tried that one time, and you never know. True. I always tell people, you never know. So stand up is such a great, fun, difficult profession, and I don't even look. And for another thing, when I see comics bashing other comics, it's really irritating, and they bash them only because they're successful, or and I think to myself, or political, they don't like their politics, and I think to myself, there's a lot of comedians that I can't stand. Personally, I don't like them. However, I never ever bash them as far as what they do on stage, because comedy is hard, and regardless of what I think about your politics, whatever, if you have found an audience and you're writing jokes and you found an audience, hey, more power to you, man. I mean, because stand up is hard, so you want to make people laugh, but the goal is to make people laugh, and then gear into your audience. Have people that like what you talk about and what you say, and you make them laugh. There's some people that guy doesn't make me laugh, but that guy makes me laugh. Comedy is really hard. So no matter what, like Carrot Top, he catches grief all the time, but Carrot Top is really good at what he does. Right. He's the best at what he does. He's good to his fans. His fans love him to death. So it's like, for when people used to bash him, it's like, what are you bashing Scotty for, man? He's doing what he loves to do, and he's good at what he does. That's the kind of stuff he's good at. He's not this kind of comedian or that kind of. That's the kind of comedian he does, and he's worked hard at it. Why diss the guy? Because you don't, so it just comes off as jealousy. Comes off really nauseating when you hear other comics doing stuff like that.
Yeah, totally.
Agreed, sir.
So I am very curious about your shirts. So do you rip the sleeves off yourself, or do they come
No, I think I bought a couple of pre-ripped one time, but it made me look too, I don't know, they look too fancy.
Too neat. You needed to look like too neat.
Yeah, they were too neat. I mean, who wants a tapered shirt?
Because I've been trying to rip the sleeves off of my plaid and flannel shirts for years, and I cannot get it to look as good as yours. Like, I'm looking for that in my formal wear, and I can't figure it out.
No, I actually do. I find a shirt that fits, that hangs properly, and then I cut the sleeves out myself, and then I save money. Me and a bunch of strippers, we combine our money, and we'll buy the shirts. They'll get the sleeves for leg wraps or arm wraps, and then I'll get the.
That's a good way to do it.
Do you teach them how to clog too, as a part of their dancing?
And I teach them how to clog. Yes,
I knew it.
I heard there's a new joint opening up in Clearwater called Clogs, and free lunch buffet.
Ugh.
You eat that, you will have some clogging.
I heard it protects you against the coronavirus.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know what to think about the coronavirus. I don't know, something weird about this whole thing.
Yeah,
it's definitely unprecedented.
My buddy just called me up and said he lives in Idaho, and they have one case in Idaho. Somebody tested positive for corona, and they're already almost over it.
Right.
They got it, self-contained themselves, and the governor has shut down the entire state.
Wow.
The entire state.
What's going on in Nebraska?
Well, how do you think that guy feels who had the coronavirus, and then all of Idaho is
I know.
shut
I'll tell you,
down?
Nebraska, we have maybe 50 people tested. Nobody's died. We have 50 people that have tested for it. It's just so It's just so, it's like, it's almost like they're announcing, somebody went in today and tested positive for the flu virus. It's like, I really don't get it. I mean, it's bizarre. We were doing fine, and then our mayor came out and said they're going to start arresting people if you have more than 10 at any gathering or anywhere you're at.
That's insane.
They're going to start
Arresting
arresting
people?
And I'm thinking, you're going to start. I go, what kind of a? Are you? What is this country? What is we? Here's the thing, guys, and I make this point all the time. It's like, wouldn't it have been easier just to people at a high risk to keep them away from everyone else, and for 6 weeks, maybe kind of keep them, and rather than shut down the entire economy? I mean, what does this tell to our enemies? All they have to do now is throw out some flu-like virus that we don't know what it is, and then we're going to shut down our country. I mean, if we have to do this every year now, that's the end of it. I mean, we're toast.
Yeah,
you're
I mean,
right.
crazy.
Seriously, we are toast. If they do this, if this is how we're going to react as a country, every time something like this happens, we're done. They just put out a warning today. This isn't over. It's never going to end. We can stop the spread by what we're doing. And remember, once the summer's over, this is going to come up again in the winter. So we need to be prepared. I'm thinking, what, are we going to shut down for 4 months in the winter now too?
Yeah. It doesn't make sense, man. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just wild. It's crazy to think about.
Should. Let me tell you something. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I do with the government. Look, if that's what they're saying, they probably know more than I do. It's just raising red flags. I mean, when they're just saying anything, you do this and you got to do this stuff that doesn't even make sense. We're going to close down anything that is non-essential where people are gathered. We don't want more than 10 people. So these businesses have to close. And every business they mentioned that has to close, you never see more than 10 people in there anyway. And it's like, what the? Seriously, it's really bugging the crap out of me. There's so many red flags. They did a thing the other day on TV, and sorry to go off on this tangent, but they did a thing the other day on TV, and they said through satellite imaging and cell phone tracking, these are the states where they're telling people and running ads to make people stay in their homes. By they're tracking people's cell phones, and it said only 28% of the citizens in Iowa are following the guidelines by cell phone, according to the FBI tracking services. And I'm thinking, they are tracking everyone. To me, are you shitting me?
That's insane.
Yeah. So now they know what states to target the people that aren't obeying the orders because of cell phone tracking. That shit, I'm not kidding. I don't care who you are, Democrat, Republican, Independent. That should scare the living shit out of everybody on this planet.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is so stinking frustrating. I mean, I can understand if, holy shit, 200,000 people have died, in the United States, or 150,000. I mean, because 150,000 would at least be flu-like numbers.
Yeah.
Not even. Yeah. Well, true. That would be. Well, that'd be more than flu.
Yeah.
I think what we got to do is just round up all the millennials and.
Oh, shut up. Shut
Yeah.
up.
Send them. I was going to say to Florida, but I don't want to offend you.
No, you're good. Hey, I just thought my buddies, they're all mad in Florida because all those New Yorkers were flying to Florida to escape it, and some of them had this thing, and so they're like, now they can't go out of their homes for 10 days because everybody was flying down with the Wuhan or whatever.
That's actually true. I actually didn't even think of that because of all the people from this part of the country that go to Florida for like winter and stuff, and then the first things came out that the virus doesn't do well in warm climates, and then they all took off to Georgia and Florida, and now those are big hot spots. It totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, now they're shut down Florida because everybody from the north went down. Oh man!
Well, I have a tent. I'm just coming to your house in Nebraska. You won't even know I'm there.
Hey man, We're come on. Other than our governor being a dipshit, we're pretty good.
I got a
Or
lot
our
of beef
mayor.
jerky.
Sorry, our governor's pretty good. I'm talking about our mayor.
Anyway, so we really want to thank you for spending
Yeah,
some
man.
time with us. And we know you're
Well,
busy.
heck yeah. Yeah, no doubt. I sorry I got on the virus thing.
No,
just
it's all good.
weird. I just feel bad everybody's cooped up in their and knowing my luck, this thing will be lifted 3 days before my special comes out.
So if anyone's listening in the government right now, keep the lockdown until at least
After
April
Easter,
8th.
yeah.
At least April 8th.
I sent out it was funny. I said, somebody sent me a thing and it's these shelves. They're just totally annihilated. There's only 2 items left. And it was my tuna helper. My Larry the Cable Guy tuna helper. And I sent it out on Twitter and I said, when your food is the only food left during a pandemic, it might be time to retool.
Well, on that note, so hey Dan, can you just we'll roll the end, but then can you just stay on the phone for 1 sec?
Yeah.
Stay on for 1 sec. So besides the special, which is the big thing coming out April 7th, anything else you want to throw out there real fast?
No, you know what? That's it. Just everybody stay safe and we'll be fine here in a few. But I hope they enjoy the special, and this is how I usually like putting out specials, when people are forced to do nothing but watch it.
Perfect timing. All right, so stay on for a sec. We're gonna roll the credit, and then I'll jump back on with you for a sec.
You got it.